Hi, my name is Stephanie, and thanks for joining us today for 3 keys to delivering great IT services. A few quick notes before we get started. Your phone lines are muted today, so if you have any questions for our presenters, please submit them using the Q&A panel. You can access this from the top right-hand corner. You'll see a blue question mark icon, and please send that to all panelists. Also, we are recording the event today, so you will receive an email from me on Monday with a link to the recording as well as to all the presenter slides. So without further delay, I'd like to turn it over to Don Casson, CEO of Evergreen Systems.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Don Casson, CEO of Evergreen, and with me is Jeff Benedict, who heads up Evergreen's ITSM practice as well as our innovation efforts. If you're new to our webinar series, welcome and thanks for joining us. If you're a past attendee, thanks for joining us again. Our goal is, as always, to share valuable information and insights you can use in your planning and activities right now. The topic we'll explore today is the power of service delivery roles, mainly the service owner, the power of KPIs, and the power of configuration management. These are often overlooked but important levers. So here's our agenda. After a little bit about Evergreen, we'll dive into our topic today. Beyond that, we'll briefly demonstrate our always evolving view of a very advanced service catalog and portal experience built on ServiceNow. Then we'll answer questions if you have any. Anytime during the webinar, you may submit a question using the Q&A function that Stephanie mentioned. Evergreen is a U.S.-based consulting firm. We work with hundreds of mid-market, Fortune 1000, and public sector organizations to help them improve their IT service management execution. We're a full lifecycle firm, meaning we have both process and technology in one company. We're one of the top 5 U.S. ServiceNow partners and have over a decade of domain experience in each area of their portfolio, but we do view all of this from the perspective of customer-centric IT service management. At Evergreen, we think that conventional ITSM wisdom is wrong. It's been done the same old way for the past decade, incident, problem, change, and a little knowledge, and at the end of it, we may be running a little bit better, but so what? What have we done for the customer? Are we making a difference for them? Or are we waiting very late in our project to even think about them? We think this old model is broken and that you can demand more than that. You can start with the customer in phase 1 and can deliver a big customer success in that phase, one that the customers and the CIO will notice. And if you're already a couple of years into your latest ITSM journey, well, now really is the time. For the past 2 years at Evergreen, we've been working very hard on just this picture, focusing from the customer in, not IT out, with IT and the customer evolving together from the start. So let's get into our topic today. This is a fun topic because it's a little bit deeper, and it combines people, process, technology, and organizational change, the elements of a good story. I think these 3 questions are very powerful. What does the customer really want? Do we know? How do we know that we know? The customer does have an opinion of us. Do we know what that is? Once we really start to know, then how can we align against what the customer really wants? And how can we stay aligned with them as we all evolve? Last, it's not just me, it's our whole team. How do we get everyone on board and being part of delivering great services rather than siloed technical outcomes? Here are 3 powerful keys to help with that: service delivery roles, KPIs, and configuration management. They don't stand alone. They work together to help us start delivering services and then improve those services over time. Let's see how they can help us answer the 3 questions we just asked. As we often do, going over a couple of idle definitions is a useful exercise for getting us all on the same page. 3 of these are relevant today: service owner, KPIs, and configuration management. The service owner is the person who owns or is responsible for delivery of a specific service. Now, you could say that's easy. If I'm the person who provisions the database, then that is my service, and I control it. Simple enough. But what if that is just one element of delivering a complete computing capability in support of a critical application? Who owns that compound service? A KPI is a metric used to help manage an IT service. There are lots of metrics, but the KPI is reserved, according to IDLE, for only the most important metrics. Note it doesn't mention SLA or OLA at the same level of importance. Configuration management is a process that maintains accurate information about things that are used to deliver IT services. The natural extension is that we need to know we can rely on those things to be ready and be right when we need to deliver an IT service. I'm assuming that most of us on the call today have room to improve how we do this. In order to improve, we ought to identify why we aren't doing these things well today. We don't know what the customer wants because, well, maybe we don't speak the same language. Maybe we don't ask them. Maybe we don't understand we are the seller and they are the buyer. Or maybe because what we do is really hard, and maybe because we're afraid they won't actually be very happy with us. Does anyone really own the outcome the customer wants? Lots of us own bits and pieces in our silos, but how about from start to finish, from request to outcome? If no one really owns it, then we wouldn't actually have metrics to measure it, because they would never have been needed. Since services are outcomes customers want, and we don't really know what our customers want, maybe no one really owns them at our end, then how could we truly be delivering services? All that said, since what we do is very hard, and we don't have any time to spare, we don't really have this mapped out end to end so we can see it and understand the part that we play in it. Let's look at the role specifically of service ownership. Here's a service we call SAP, and James Vitola is a service owner. And here's a simple point where we start that begins to make a big difference. You see James's name is published right next to the customer quality rating in that circle right there. For many organizations, assigning a service owner, publishing customer satisfaction, and putting the owner's name right next to it would be very foreign. Let's just step into this in a moment and think about it. How does James feel about this? I would bet he's very worried and he's feeling exposed. So would James think any differently than he did before this? I think he probably would, because the truth is he never really thought very much about end-to-end service quality because he didn't own it. Now James immediately will be thinking about what customers think about this service today, how we can better deliver it end-to-end and meet the promises he is making now and creating happy customers. This is a radically different focus for James. And so it leads us to one of the Evergreen design principles we use, which is if everyone owns the service, no one does. Every service we deliver is made up of lots of little services. And even though James owns the big service, there are lots of these little services being combined from different parts of IT to make it up. This is part of what scares James because he doesn't control those people. They don't work for him, so how can he possibly be successful? First off, James is now passionately and accurately aligned with the customer. He will get working to understand what they want and figure out how to deliver it better right away. And that's pretty good. And that can work because customers don't expect a bad service to become a great one overnight. They just want to know they are heard, someone cares, and is working to improve things. So the first two of those things can happen right away. To make the third one work, James now becomes the customer's advocate. Their goals are his goals. So he begins explaining to everyone delivering services to him how important they are, how they fit into the big scheme, and what the customer really wants. James creates meaningful mission alignment because just mechanically doing a task is not very emotionally fulfilling. But helping a customer as part of the team, that is. And every day, James will work with everyone, giving feedback, helping them improve, streamlining, encouraging the effort, and making sure they see their part in the big picture. So over time, we begin to see everyone align with the customer. So how do we get service ownership to work? More specifically, how do we get the service owner to work? First, we have to understand it seems pretty daunting, and the service owner, James, will feel a serious lack of control over his success. Step one is awareness. We have to understand James' concerns and seek to be understood as well. Right off the top, it is nothing new, right? We're not introducing a whole bunch of new services. We're already delivering them today, just in the hardest possible and least efficient way. So this would have to be an improvement, right? It can only get better. Secondly, everyone but us knows how the customer really feels about us. They all talk. We're the only ones who don't know. So it's not like their opinion of us will go down. In fact, it'll probably go up if they see that we're genuinely and openly trying to do a better job for them. Last, we can run, but we cannot hide. If we treat our customers like we own them, like prisoners, and it's a harsh term, but if we treat them that way, that we control them, then that mentality will ensure that someday we don't. Next, we experiment. We begin trying things out. We open dialogue, we look for ways to improve, and we make it fun, because doing better as a team is fun. And we keep it low risk. No one gets penalized for trying a new way. That kills a team. So we also make sure their existing recognition and compensation plans don't hurt them during this time of change. Finally, when we're making progress and see things changing, we learn and adopt a new way, determine our next set of targets, and align goals and compensation to follow them. KPIs are tools to help us enable change, measure progress, and get everyone aligned with goals. In other words, kind of rowing the same way. So we start at the top with the customer. What does the customer care about? Do they care about 5 nines? Do they care about 3 nines? Do they even know what 3 or 5 nines are? The customer cares about 3 things. And every customer I've ever met or worked with really cared about these 3 things. A great customer experience, delivering what you promised on time, and a service that is available and fast whenever they need it. That's it. Pretty simple. From there, as we go down into our service layers, we cascade these goals down. And every sub-goal, SLA, OLA, on down through the organization should align with the KPIs of the customer. That's pretty logical. So we start simply with 2 or 3 metrics, see how we're doing, and then evolve those metrics as we learn and grow. We don't want to over-metricize. And we measure and share all our metrics up and down, so everyone can see how they fit into the big picture, as well as how they might help other members of their team, or how there might be redundancies they weren't even aware of between different parts of the team. We do this together from the beginning experiment in a low-risk way, because only a team can deliver a great service. This is one I call the KPI Pyramid. So the KPIs cascade down, as mentioned, in a pyramid, from the customer to the service owner to the service providers. And actually, all of these are service owners at different levels. KPIs become SLAs, and SLAs become OLAs as we go down the pyramid. And all the OLAs roll up into the SLAs, which deliver the KPIs. Pretty logical. Then, working as a team, we continuously seek to improve our service delivery, as well as the measures of our success. So I'd like to tell you a quick story that seems unbelievable, but it's absolutely true, about the power of a team, customer mission, and measures. There was a guy named Jack Stack, and he was a brand new manager at International Harvester, the industrial manufacturer, in the 1980s. He found out that they were in big trouble, and he'd just gotten there. They had to deliver an order of 800 tractors to the Soviet Union in 30 days. And if they missed the date by even 1 day, there were very crippling financial penalties. So that was not a good option. They were delivering, that 800 was an average of 40 tractors per day. The big problem, their current output was 5 or 6 tractors a day, or about 120 a month. There was no way they could possibly make it. So Jack put a big sign outside his office, our goal, 800 tractors by 10/31. Well, everybody laughed at it. They scoffed. They said it was impossible, but they began to think about it like a team. The next day, at the end of the day, the shop foreman took a piece of chalk and drew a big circle with a number in it, the production for the day. And it started going up every day as everyone started trying to figure out how to make more tractors. Within a few weeks, they were making 55 tractors a day, 10 times what they were doing a couple of weeks before. On October 26th, the sign said 662 tractors shipped, 4 days to go. On Halloween, at closing time, they had delivered 808 tractors. Impossible, but true. The third key for today is configuration management. It's important to apply a building block mentality constructing services, then combine the blocks to create new services and variations of existing ones. If all your services are single-threaded, custom-built, they'll be expensive to create, impossible to maintain, and confusing to your customer. If you think about Amazon, and I've used this example before, what would it be like if every Amazon department had its own checkout procedure? Another parallel we've talked about is an automobile assembly line, every piece just in time at consistently high quality. It's the same for us, but this idea has its own challenges too. Every service module could be used in hundreds of services, so we have to use configuration management with each service being managed as a configuration item or a CI and mapped into any combined service of which they are a part. Here are the benefits from using configuration management to manage services. First and foremost, it gives us factory-like benefits of consistency, quality, accuracy, and reuse. It gives us agility because we can much more easily and simply create new services. It helps everyone involved to better see their role end-to-end and in relation to their neighbors. It gets us thinking about what are the 4 or 5 things we deliver 80% of the time. Very, very important, right? Then improving, streamlining, simplifying, and automating those 4 to 5 things. And it helps us think globally and act locally, which is a really big challenge for large and diverse organizations. I'd like to sort of give you an example of that. Let's say we have a global service like email that we want everyone to use, but we also have companies in other continents that need certain localized features. So what do? In a modular fashion, those other providers, those other parts of our organization can use 80% of the core offering the same way we do, and perhaps create a few specific components to meet their localized need. And we're all still on the same page for 80%, which is a much better outcome than different email systems for every country. So how do the 3 keys work together? At the top, we're trying to educate, change our culture, and learn and adopt a new way of doing things. KPIs, cascaded down to SLAs and OLAs, give us a way to measure the progress, identify what is worth measuring, give us a basis to correct our course, and keep us aligned with the customer. On the left-hand side, configuration management gives us the ability to scale and grow as we begin to succeed. And as well, we can use configuration management to consistently communicate with and enable a broader audience to participate in this change. So that's all we have for the presentation portion today. I hope it was of some value to you guys. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Benedict, and he's going to run through what we're doing today in Evergreen's always evolving solutions. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. Appreciate it. So I'm going to start with kind of showing, so Don mentioned kind of the services and defining service. I'm going to start from kind of a service consumer perspective, and I'm starting in our self-service portal built on the content management system of ServiceNow. And here the user can go out to the service catalog and they can see the various services that are provided to them from the organization. And some of the purpose for displaying this information is it, for one, provides that transparency to the consumer and kind of clarifies expectations of what you can expect from these different services. And we've organized these in categories and classifications that should be meaningful to the customer. So we are trying to speak the customer's language through this vehicle as well. On this page, the consumer can look at kind of some different perspectives. They can first of all look at the services that are defined as their services, where they are a subscriber or a consumer of this service. And this may be, as an individual, I might be listed as a subscriber. It may come through my location or my region or through my department or group. And as Don mentioned, kind of localized services. This might be something that would be specific to my locale. My other perspective, you'll notice there is service feedback on here, so I can look at these from a overall rating perspective, which ones are highest rated versus least rated, and evaluate and compare those items as well. Another common way to look is obviously to browse through the list A to Z of the different services, but most commonly consumers are likely going to look for services kind of through a search. And the thing to know with the search is that we want to create, aliases, keywords, or easy ways for the customer to find it using the different nomenclature or terms they might use in defining these services. So in this case, I search for VPN, I'm finding private token access, but I might also have, I might refer to an application by its name, or I might refer to it by its function, so we can use those as keywords to help locate and find the different services. Let me go back to the taxonomy here. The other thing I wanted to mention, you'll notice there's an option here for different catalogs, so IT versus facilities versus HR. And so there's a concept here of bringing the other, I guess, different service taxonomies to the equation here of shared services or other parts of our business, and presenting this in a one-stop shop of here's all the services offered to you through the organization, not just from IT, but also from facilities, procurement, and so forth. So I'll stick to IT for now, and let's go into a business application. We'll go into SAP Business Objects. So this page is showing me kind of the service brochure for our SAP Business Objects service. And I'll highlight a couple things. One, you get descriptions of what is the service, what can I expect. I see notables in terms of what's in scope for the service, what's out of scope. I can look and see how it's been performing from a health and status perspective. Here's where I can go and add more feedback or see those reviews. Also notice since I'm defined as a subscriber for this service, I have an option here to use this service, which may take me directly to that application or URL where I can start using and leveraging that particular service. If I weren't a subscriber, I could come out and request new access in my little list of service items and go through an order and become a subscriber of this particular service. But also, even as an existing subscriber, there might be some other options I might want to intake. I might want to request a role change, or I might want to order some of the software, so I can also do those in context of this particular service. Let me show you just one other bit of information that's contextually or conditionally relevant on these service definitions. Bond trading, for example, has different offerings. So you can present different flavors, a gold, silver, platinum kind of offering on these different services, and have those be options when you become a subscriber or users of these to kind of have a higher level of service or a lower level of service, or in this case have some regionalized service commitments based off the differences of who would use one offering versus the other. Let's go to, so I showed kind of the service health from an individual service perspective, but there's also a macro view here on the service health dashboard. And right now I don't have any alerts or outages, but I can have alerts, outages, any upcoming planned maintenance on my services, as well as look through the whole laundry list of our services and see how well they've been performing over the last 5 days. And I can see some things had some degradations of service, as well as there were some outages related to some services earlier in the week that may have impacted my use of those particular services. So let me now shift away from the consumer perspective and kind of focus on the owner's kind of perspective. So I'm going to go back to kind of the ServiceNow native view. So first of all, let me show you a service definition record. So, and one thing I want to focus in on this is our Outlook Web Access service, is you'll notice there's a number of relationships to other configuration items. I'll pull this up in kind of a map view. And what I wanted to highlight here is that one, our services are in the middle that is dependent on other services, is also another service is dependent on this service, and not to mention there's also a whole host of equipment and servers, network gear, storage devices, et cetera, that also are dependent on the health of this particular service. So if there were an outage for any of these components, then that would obviously impact our given service as well. And one of the things that we did to kind of support that linkage is we created kind of an outage dependency definition page. So this is where a service owner can come in here and say, here's based off of my relationships of my components, I can kind of choose how those components impact my overall service health. So some of the things I'm seeing here is I can see that here's my configuration items that I have available. I can pick and choose from here and kind of group them together or exclude them. I can do things like turn off my outage spreading in total, which is to say that if I had an outage for a component, it has no impact to my service. I can also choose to treat any high priority incidents as a degradation of service, which would mean that if I had a high priority incident for one of these components, it would result in a degradation of service record reported for my overall OWA service. So some of the other things I've done on this page, you'll see these groupings of configuration items: email, server cluster, relay server cluster. And what this means is I'm in essence saying that these two servers together should be treated as one. That if I had one outage or one of these components were to be down, it wouldn't impact my service directly, but both of them have to be down together. So in essence, we have redundancy built between these two components that collectively need to be in a degraded or down status in order for it to really impact my service. I can also exclude configuration item components from my list just to say that this particular item down here maybe has no impact to my health of my service. Maybe it's a utility server or some other help documentation server, and it doesn't really provide any meaningful or critical component to my health. So now that I've shown you this, let me show you kind of simulating an outage to this particular component. And one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to actually push an outage into our environment from Splunk. And let me turn this on real quick, and this may take a second or two, so I'll talk while I'm doing this. So in essence, what we have set up out here is we've got Splunk connecting to one of our servers and reading some of the log file information. And what should happen, and it may take a second or two, is that it should see an error out there and basically go through the event management application of ServiceNow, create an alert, and then trigger and create an incident record based off of that. And then I wanted to show you kind of the downstream impact that would have on the service from that dependency definition. So this is where I need to play the Jeopardy music and wait for it to come through. Bear with me for a moment. And let's see if it comes through. Sorry, it doesn't come in a second. I'll just create one manually. I'll come back and show you. So while I'm waiting, let me just create one manually and show you kind of how this works. So I'll actually do it this way. So let me create a new incident for my component. So if I create an incident for my component, a high priority incident, right? Server is down. And one of the things that just happened is that by creating that one incident record for our component, a high priority, it looked at that definition, that dependency definition, created an outage record or degradation outage record for our component, but also went and looked at the impacted services and their definitions of dependency and created in essence, a degradation outage for each of these services. And so, let's see if my Splunk ever came through. So here's my Splunk one as well, so I might have duplicate alerts now, but so Splunk came through and created an incident as well, which might have also created outage records. Looks like it did. So one of the things that happens out here now is, so as a consumer, I now see my services have been degraded. I've got little notifications and alerts that certain services that I rely on have been degraded in service, as well as my indicator on my home page here changes as well. And then any of these items I can go in and look and drill into and see what the actual issue is. And then the other thing to note here, you'll notice that some of these items here have a little pencil next to them. And what this is I'm listed as the service owner of this particular service. So I get a notification telling me that one of my services has been degraded or is in an outage state. So I can come out here and I can actually clarify the description of my service issue to my consumers. You know, maybe I want to say something like Exchange server is down, ops team is working on it, but it should be back online at 3 p.m., something like that. All right. And then there is one thing you'll notice when I update this is these outage records are linked together. So these the ones that kind of were, because they're all tied to that same core alert, that any updates I make to them are kind of synchronized amongst those particular outages as well. And there is an option to kind of desynchronize that so that you could provide separate information or separate commentary on each of the different service outages. All right, so one thing I'm going to do here just to kind of, I guess, clear this out a little bit, let me just go back into here real quickly. I'm going to just mark our outages as being complete. So I'll go to one of these. Oops, it's not that record. Let's go to this record here. just going to mark this as done. I'll do the same for our duplicate one that came through as well, just so our outage environment is clear. So one thing you'll see that I marked these, the core item has now been up online, and you'll notice that the other service outage records are synchronized with that, so they're online too. All right, so if I come out here, what I should see is now our services are operational and my notifications are positive notifications alerting me that my services are now back and restored. All right. So the other thing I wanted to cover was, let me go in from a service owner perspective into the portal. So I'm going to go in as the service owner of our SAP Business Object service that we looked at earlier. And I'll come out here. So Don comes out to here. We can go look for our SAP Business Objects. Now, one thing that's a little different for Don out here as the service owner of this particular service is there's a couple icons at the top here, one for our service management dashboard, which I'll show you that in a second, but also a way for him to come out here and edit the service definition. So he can come out here, kind of look at the service definition. He can reclassify it in the taxonomy to where he wants to put that. You can define or update the descriptions, update the support group information, right? Also down below, my what service items are available for me to order and request in context of the service I can define here. If I had any listings of offerings, I would define those here. I have my in-scope, out-of-scope, another area where I can view my service feedback as well as my subscribers. All right, so I can edit that, or I can also, let's go into the dashboard. And from this management dashboard, you know, the kind of things I can see, for one, I can look at the right here and kind of see my overall commitments that I have made. So we've got commitments for doing an access request within 3 business days, which I can see I'm actually not meeting that SLA currently. I also have SLAs for my resolution time on priority 1 incidents that come through, and so far I'm good there, as well as my availability target of 99% is there as well. So the other things I can kind of see, so for example, my requests, maybe I want to look and see kind of all the requests that I've had, and the reason why our actual numbers here at 50% is because we did have, of our sample size that was in this kind of reporting area, really had 1 that failed and 1 that matched, which is why we have 50% in there. But I can also look at, you know, any open incidents that come through and kind of track, this one's already been breached, or some of these other ones are positive. And, you know, further I can kind of look at, here's my subscribers. I can see of my list of subscribers which ones provided feedback, and I can see Adam out here provided some feedback that was negative. I can come down to my other area over here and see his negative feedback. Maybe that's something I want to follow up with him on to kind of talk about how I can improve his service, improve this service for his needs. The other area I want to kind of hone in on here, so I've got my health of my service is again dependent on the components that make up this service. So on this page I can see kind of a dashboard of my components as well as my overall service. I can also see this from a map perspective, so I can come out and see what's my relationship map to my service. And then I can also look at dashboards and reports down below here as well. And just to kind of complete this picture, let me just create an outage record for this particular service, right? So I've got a component here, let's take this server, ISXH. All right, so if I create an outage for this record, so we'll say HPUX server is down, just say begin outage. Go back to that. That was this guy. All right, maybe this started a while ago. I'm just going to backdate it a little bit just to show that. So now when I refresh my screen over here, you'll see I have an outage record now for my SAP Business Objects because it was cascaded from the outage to this particular component. And again, as a service owner, I can come out here and kind of clarify the expectation. Right here is more information, right, in relation to that. So I think that kind of covers what I hope to cover today. I hope this was you know, helpful in terms of sparking some thoughts on the service catalog, the portal, and kind of the management of the services.
Thank you, Jeff. You're showing some things in the management dashboard that I wasn't aware of, so it's kind of fun. I also learned during the webinars how far you're actually going.
I was surprised you, Don.
I'll watch this when we record it so I can sort of absorb it again. So for next steps, Let's see.
Sorry.
There we go. So,
oh, sorry, I just passed it back to you, Don.
Oh, that's all right. Let me share it. You can see the guts of the machine, huh?
Yeah. We are really live, in case you were wondering.
Okay.
There we go. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Okay, so if this is of interest to you and wonder what might be something logical as a next step, here are some of the things we have as options. You can go and get a login for the Metro Style Service Catalog and portal yourself and use it and play with it to your heart's content. Yeah, it's fun. It's interesting. You can learn a lot about how we constructed it and how we think about this. And you just send a request and you'll get the login information. You're off to the races. You might be interested in how we actually come up with the way we build a taxonomy and how we actually, that framework that shows up in the service catalog, and we leverage a graphical technology to do that, which is really great in group facilitation, and cannot stress how critical a service taxonomy is. And if you're interested in that, there's a YouTube video, 5 minutes long, about how we do it and what goes into it that I think is terrific because I recorded it. Also, we have which is the way a lot of things start, we have a one-day private service catalog workshop, and this is a pretty popular item. It's $4,000, $3,950, including travel, and 2 consultants spend a day with you and your team of up to 15 people walking through this education of customer-centric IT service management and the components that are involved in the service catalog, the service design process, the service taxonomy, and how all that flows into a lifecycle portfolio management. So it sounds like a lot, but it really is a pretty good day of getting a team educated to the same level on some concepts that are pretty challenging. And we found that probably the best benefit is you can save months of frustration and communication challenges in trying to get everybody communicating the same way. So that's been very popular as well. So that's basically all we've got from that standpoint, and we can open it up for questions.
Great. We do have a few, and Jeff, I'm going to start with you. In the service taxonomy, would you expect all users to see all catalogs, categories, and services?
No, I mean, I think in an ideal world, you really want to kind of hone in and show just those services and those categories that are relevant to your specific consumer. Example might be, we might have like a sales application service or sales management service, and that probably wouldn't be applicable to, an employee working on a shipping dock or something of that nature. Right, so we do want to kind of show stuff that's job relevant. I think the challenge we oftentimes run into with a lot of our customers is having the right data sources to be able to profile these are the types of users, and then 2, kind of matching that up with here are the services and the categories that should be relevant to these specific types of users.
Okay, great. Jeff, another one for you. In your demo, you created an event from Splunk. Are there other tools that you can integrate into ServiceNow to push alerts and create incidents?
Sure, definitely. So there's a number of package integrations that are already out there for some of the more popular tools in the market in event management. And there's, in addition to that, there's also there's some documented examples of how to integrate for some of the other ones that aren't plugins or packaged. For example, I know there's integrations with IBM Tivoli, NetCool, HP OpenView, SCOM, and SolarWinds. I know those are out there, and then there's also a large community out there too of documentation on here's how you can integrate with this tool, that tool, et cetera, that might match the tools used in your organization.
Okay, great. Jeff, another one for you. The outage dependency seems cool, but I assume this is dependent on having configuration item relationships defined. How do you get these relationships defined?
So yes, it is dependent on configuration item relationships, and in the demo environment I was showing today, all those relationships are really kind of demo data and manually maintained, but and I guess you could manage relationships manually and leverage change management to control those kind of configuration relationship adjustments, but that's typically not a sustainable solution. So typically to do this correctly, we recommend integration with discovery tools. Obviously ServiceNow Discovery is an option, Service Watch is an option, Also other ones that we see pretty popular or common out there, HP Universal Discovery and BMC Atrium.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff. I've got a note here, another question that says, ServiceNow showed some interesting stuff for the iOS app user experience at Knowledge 15. How does that impact what you are doing?
Okay. Yeah, let me take that one. That's a good one. And it was, when Fred was on stage, it was really good stuff on the user experience and the user interface and the mobile phone client, which was great to see. We knew that they were working on the mobile client, which is one of the reasons why we haven't built one, because that was something we were hoping to be able to leverage. You know, one of the things that kind of differentiates us from the way ServiceNow has gone is our focus has always been not just on the user experience, but on the three constituents of a service: the customers, the providers, and the managers. And all three are required to create and sustain viable services over time. So you can see that's kind of what comes out in our efforts around focus on service taxonomy and the deep service catalog content in the organization, and meeting the needs of all those constituents. Actually, the manager's dashboard type of capability that Jeff displayed today, it's all around making sure we support all the constituents of a service. And we are built into the ServiceNow, into the CMS. So we're native to the application, and we will continue to be so. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to be meeting with ServiceNow for a deeper dive on exactly what they're creating for Geneva, which is about 6 months away. And we both want to do it because we want to make sure that we aren't duplicating efforts that they're following, that we're pushing new ground with our application, and that we're building on top of what it is that they're coming out with. And that's the kind of the intent behind the ServiceNow ecosystem, that it continues to evolve and shift, you know, in 6-month increments. So I guess our view overall is that we want to be able to take advantage of the things that they're building for the Geneva release.
Okay, great. Jeff, anything to add to that before I ask another question?
No, I thought Don answered that pretty well.
All right, good. Jeff, I think this one would be for you. Does the product integrate with Active Directory and SCCM?
Yes. So Active Directory is, and I guess there's two ways around, or two aspects of it. Active Directory, there's an out-of-the-box kind of LDAP connection aspect to Active Directory to read any data out of Active Directory. Typically, this is user, location, department kind of data you'd want to populate into ServiceNow on a regular basis. And also tied to that same protocol is the authentication of being able to log in and authenticate to Active Directory as part of your security access into ServiceNow. And the same kind of thing exists with SCCM. Is there's plugins to be able to read data from SCCM and push that into ServiceNow. I was going to add to the other angle of it is both of those can also be integrated with through the orchestration part of ServiceNow to actually push changes into Active Directory, create a new object in AD, make a role change, add a user to group or common kind of things. Password reset is certainly a part of that use case as well. And in SCCM, we've done some work in the past of doing kind of direct pushes of software to machines through SCCM using the orchestration components of ServiceNow.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff. I will wait one more minute to see if any other questions come in. In the meantime, I will remind you that I will send a recording out on Monday. So you will receive a link from me with the recording as well as a link to download the slides that you saw today. And I'll do one last check here for questions.
Maybe that we're dealing with a little bit of Friday afternoon brain.
I know I am from the way I was driving the webinar today. So, all right. Well, I think maybe we can give everyone 15 minutes back into their Friday. And I want to thank you all for attending. We will have another webinar in approximately 2 weeks. So I do invite you to check evergreensys.com and go to our resources page where we will announce the next topic. And thank you for, oh, I'm sorry. I've got, let's see. I was asking, oh, Jeff, take a look at your Q&A panel. I've got someone just sent me a note that perhaps she sent the question directly to you and not to all of us. Do you see anything hiding in there?
I see two Q&As. One is the dashboard a custom UI, and the other one is, I think, from the same person. So Metro Style is custom-built UI that you sell. So I'll take the last question first, which is the slide we have up right now is, I guess it's not covered too much here, but yes, we have the kind of self-service portal that I kind of walked through today is a product that we sell, and you know, there's two different packagings for pre-Fuji. There's update sets that can get loaded into your environment to support that. In Fuji, it is part of the application store you can install and buy from us through that vehicle. And the dashboard encompassed inside that portal is, you know, it's a custom UI in the sense that it's all part of the content management system, and specifically pages built on the content management system. So I think that was all I had in my Q&A area.
Okay.
Okay, so I covered both of them. Okay, we're just taking a quick look at Don's just to see if there's anything that maybe he missed. No, I think we're good. All right, well, then once again, I want to thank everyone for attending, and keep an eye out for an email from me on Monday. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.